everyone, this is Tribecast episode 30 and my name is Marina. Though we have ended Tribecast summer tour, it won't stop me from traveling and visiting events, talking to people outside of Tampere. So, when our friends from Shift Business Festival in Turku invited us to do a recording, there was no place for doubts whether to go or not. This week's episode contains 5 interviews, and here are the names. You will hear the CEO of Metsa Spring, Niklas von Weymarn, the CEO at Shift Business Festival, Männistö, Chief Digital Officer of Handelsbanken, Stephan Erne, Business Development and Technical Product Manager of Neste, Risto Vapola, and last but not the least, Professor Joanna Bryson. My name is Marina. You're listening to Tribecast TRE, so let's get started. Right, and this week we are recording a special episode for Shift Business Festival in Turku. On the invitation of organizers, and now we remind our listeners that an interview with one of the Shift crew, Veli-Pekka, was released a few weeks ago, so you can check that in the previous episodes. Today we have guests who are mostly speakers and visitors from Shift. My first guest for this week represents Metsa Group. Also, he's a speaker, but, well, he'll talk more about what he is and what he's going to talk about. Hello, Niklas. Thank you very much for having time for this interview. And let's start from the very basics. Can you tell our listeners a few things about yourself?
Hi, and thanks for the invitation. My name is Niklas von Weymarn. I work for Metsa Group and more specifically for the unit or the company called Metsa Spring, which is a fairly new corporate venture capital company within Metsa Group.
Right, and also you're a speaker today during Shift Festival. Could you please tell what will be your keynote about? What will your presentation be about?
Well, the session is about forest, or it's linked to forest, so I need to talk about, first of all, what the Finnish forest is all about. And then hopefully towards the end of my presentation, I come to startup companies and how they link to the ecosystem, which is built around using wood and making all kinds of interesting products.
So from biological understanding of ecosystem to business understanding of ecosystem.
Exactly. That's right about what we are doing.
Okay. I should confess I have never met a startup who are doing something about forest, at least a Finnish startup. I met a few internationals. Is it a big thing nowadays in Finland? Is it popular?
Well, compared to the scenery in the area of IT or gaming, the forest-based sector is still small in terms of startup companies, but it's developing. So it's a very interesting time to be part of that scene at the moment. And you have to remember that in forest-based sector, it's not only about manufacturing something, it's also quite a lot of different new digital tools which we are applying to our businesses, and they are typically developed by small companies.
Can you maybe give some, if you have some good example in your head, what kind of things can be done with the Finnish forest? And generally, why did Metsa decide to join this specific field, not something more popular like mentioned gaming?
Well, originally Metsa was established, a parent company, about 90 years ago by a group of forest owners. So the parent company is a cooperative, and the mission is still the same, to make sure that there is good demand for the Finnish trees. And that requires then a very competitive global business to be able to purchase the wood from the forest owners. So that's what the parent or the group companies are doing. But then again, as any company, small or big, we need to develop. We need to look into the future, and it's quite clear that fraction of the new ideas will be found within our group, and most of the ideas will be outside our group. So how to find those? How to find a good idea in Japan or a good idea in a university in Canada? And one way of attracting and interacting with these smaller companies, these ideas, is then to be active in corporate venture capital activity.
All right. I got the how to, but maybe you can define for me what is a good idea in your understanding when you're thinking about cooperating with a startup. What are your criteria?
Yeah, the main criterion is to find such new technologies or business ideas which link to the business ecosystem around Metsa Group today. So they would, in the long term, then be part of the ecosystem if the development of the company is successful. So that's the main idea. It's a strategic reason to be active in venture capital scenery, not primarily a financial reason.
So thinking a few steps ahead every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one way of finding new ideas. We are also quite active in open innovation, in quite a few open or joint research projects where we have even with competitors developing some basic understanding, we recruit clever people. We can in-license interesting technologies, but on top of that, then investing in small, fast-growing companies is just another tool in the toolbox.
When I was preparing for this episode at Shift, I found that on the website of Shift Business Festival, they actually linked each speaker to the company website. And for you, there is your photo and a quote from one of your, speeches or emails, which says that broad collaboration is essential for true innovation. And I guess you just gave a very good explanation of what you mean by all that.
Yeah, essentially you will not reach innovations in this current world, this current globalized world alone. You need to be part of a network. You have cooperation with a lot of different actors, universities, research organizations, other big companies, but also with small companies. And they are not only in Finland, they are everywhere in the world. So the network is important, which I call an ecosystem. And that's why I refer to a broad collaboration, and that's, in my mind, needed really to have the best innovations.
So do I get you right that you mostly believe in collaboration outside of Finland?
No,
What's more important, in your opinion? Enhancing the collaboration inside of Finland, making it deeper, or looking for partners on the outside?
It's both, but if you look in the history, the forest sector has been very good at cooperating within Finland. We used to call this the Finnish forest cluster, and the collaboration within the cluster has decades of tradition. So that's not the problem. The problem is to understand that old way of categorizing these industry sectors is gone. It's getting gray and hazy and blurry. And the new interesting things will be found when a company from our sector is meeting a company from another sector, or our big company is meeting a small company. Mm-hmm. That's where you really have the new things cooking.
So there is no more like black and white. You should look for some interesting cooperations and even unusual partnerships.
For us to be able to be active in this venture capital activity, we need to have a good basic base business. That's key. We need to be competitive in our base business. Otherwise, we don't have the means, the money to invest in new. So it's a balance between the old and the new. And when you look for the new, you need to go outside Finland and outside the forest sector in the future.
All right, and definitely festivals like Shift or the coming in October Stream in Tampere are the places to meet new people and look for new collaborations and partners.
Yeah, as I said, only a fraction of the new ideas will be found inside our group. Most of the ideas are outside, and this festival today is a good example of how you can have collisions with the people who have the new ideas.
Is it your first Shift?
This is my first Shift, yes.
Okay, welcome to Shift.
Thank you.
It's my first also, so let's explore how it goes. If there is a startup who would like to cooperate with Metsa Group and who are not here today, what are the ways to reach you guys?
Well, perhaps the easiest way is to go to our homepage, metsaspring.com, without any dots or so, metsaspring.com. Mm-hmm. And at the bottom of the entrance page, you will have this link, which then feeds back to my table.
Right, and I should have asked this question in the very beginning, but yeah, let's just ask it now. Could you please tell a bit more about what is your specific position within the group?
Well, my title is CEO of Metsa Spring, and Metsa Spring, as mentioned earlier, is the corporate venture capital arm of Metsa Group. Mm-hmm. We were established about 1.5 years ago, so it's a fairly new part of Metsa Group and growing, developing part. At the moment, we are 3 persons employed by Metsa Spring, but then a lot of, let's say, about 15 additional persons from Metsa Group helping us, but they obviously are then employed by some other legal entities within the group.
You very well explained what exactly your department is doing. Right. Thank you very much for this interview, Niklas. It was my pleasure. It was the kickoff of this episode, so hopefully it will continue as good as it is. And I wish you a good 2 days on this festival. Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, for each event, we need to ask at least someone who is behind the event to tell us what the festival is about. And this time, it's beautiful Mari, who is in our improvised studio at Shift Startup Festival. So, hello, Mari. Thank you very much for having time. I know it's really crazy, busy days for you. Thank you very much for having time for this interview. And let's start from the very beginnings and roots. Please tell our listeners a few things about yourself.
Hi. So, my name is Mari Männistö. I'm the CEO of Shift, based here in Turku, Finland. And yeah, thanks for having me and thanks for asking. My background is actually in marketing and communications. I started in Shift as a volunteer 4 years ago. I did my first year volunteering for Shift. I did Shift marketing. It started as many stories in the startup scene start. I went to a meeting with some cool people and they asked me to do a couple of social media posts next week. And yeah, so by the end of that next week, I was actually head of marketing of Shift, so as a volunteer. So that's what happened. And since my role has become more and more, since I also got inspired by Shift and I was enthusiastic, so I got employed by Shift then ultimately, and I have been employed at Shift for 2.5 years now.
Okay, as far as I got it, there is one thing in common between Tribe Tampere community and Shift Business Festival, which is the amazing power of volunteers, which make us running and going forward. But how big is the Shift team and how many volunteers are there and how many full-time employed people?
Yes, so we have a Shift RE, which is a non-profit, and then we have a company owned 100% by Shift RE. In that company, Shift Events Oy, we have 6 full-time employees, of which all of them have grown from initially being volunteers with us. On top of that, we have interns from different high-level education facilities in Turku. Also, we have volunteers around the year as well. And then I would say, of course, the number of volunteers and staff and interns is based or depends on what time of the year it is. Mm-hmm. But right now, I would say that we have about 100 to 150 volunteers working today. And of course, then a lot of other staff that we have hired as well.
Okay, that's quite a manpower or human power. And you're actually a showcase of how a volunteer can get a job within an organization. And you said that you find Shift inspiring. What inspires you about this festival?
Well, my nature is I'm naturally curious person. So I think that's one thing that I was really inspired about. At Shift, we bring all the new stuff, or not all the new stuff, but some of the coolest new stuff in technology to showcase for businesses. So, yeah, so I think that's it. Curiosity for the new things.
Compared to Ship or Stream, Shift says that you are not a startup festival, but you're a business festival. So does that mean the startups are not welcome here?
Definitely not. Yeah. So we have had pitching competitions in first 2 years as well. We do have startups attending. We do have pitching competition as a side event right now as well. Actually, yesterday that was all pitch. So we do have a lot to offer also for startups. We do have investors attending and so forth. But also, if you are a startup and you come to Shift, you can also meet a lot of SMEs. You can also meet a lot of people from corporations. And we do have a really unique atmosphere, a little bit more relaxed. And, you know, you can just go talk to people and, you know, kind of, it's not so hectic as many of the, like, hardcore startup events like Slush and Arctic, where you really have your agenda and you kind of, you know, so to Shift, you can come just, you know, come as you are and let's see what opportunities you find.
And also, I personally deeply appreciate that you forbid high heels on the venue.
Yes, no high heels.
Is it because you moved to the venue this year?
We have had the no high heels rule actually every year because we have been in very unique venues before. So we were at a medieval castle, a bit of a rocky terrain there as well. Then we were in an old prison, which was also a bit tricky if you wear your best stilettos. And then here at the shipyard, the dock, you don't want to wear the stilettos because the heels are going to break. So we are really a laid-back event where also the ladies can skip the heels for a couple of days.
Right. And also I know that besides actual meetings and speakers, you can enjoy some art during Shift Festival.
Yes. From the beginning, we had our creative director of the first year, Erika Halonen, who actually developed the Shift concept. Mm-hmm. She wanted to bring a lot of art and culture into the mix. And the idea behind that was that the people can experience something together. You know, two strangers can see that there is a racehorse in the middle of the event like we had in 2016. We actually did have a racehorse there. And, as an